You know, for most of us, night means winding down, getting some rest. But for a whole hidden workforce out there, it's just the beginning of their day. So we're gonna step into those shadows and explore the kind of dangers that are unique to people who work alone after dark, where the quiet and the isolation can turn a totally normal job into something straight out of a nightmare.
Think about that for a second. That sentence just hangs there, doesn't it? It's a confession, really. A gut feeling in that one split second where your instinct to be a good person clashes with your instinct to survive. What on earth could make someone feel that way? Well, we're about to find out.
It's true, right? When the sun goes down, the world completely changes. Places that feel familiar and safe during the day can suddenly feel alien. And for a night shift worker, every little creak, every shadow that moves, every unexpected noise gets turned up to 11. It's a job that requires this constant, draining state of high alert.
Okay, so our first story kicks off in a place we have all been, a fast food drive-thru. But for an employee named Thomas Hurley, this totally mundane, everyday spot slowly warped into the center of a deeply personal and escalating horror story. It all started with this strange, but kinda harmless pattern. A car would pull up, a guy's voice would order the exact same meal, a large double Whopper with cheese. He'd pay, and then he'd just drive off, without the food. At first, Thomas just thought, hey, weird, but free dinner for me. But then it kept happening. Same order, same voice every few days. It was like this bizarre ritual was taking shape. And then came the moment that changed everything. One night, the voice on the speaker says that, I hope you've been enjoying those Whoppers, Mr. Hurley. Mr. Hurley. See, Thomas didn't wear a name tag with his last name. A customer should have no way of knowing that. In that one single sentence, a harmless weirdo became a stalker. The game had completely changed. He was being watched. And from there, the psychological terror it spirals into the real world. First, it was a weird, cryptic note left on his doorstep. Then it became a demand for $10,000 delivered through that same drive-thru speaker. And when Thomas ignored it, the stalker got physical, smashing a rock right through his living room window. The terror wasn't just at his job anymore. It had followed him home.
All right, for our next case, the danger isn't in one place. Nope, it's out there waiting on a deserted road. For an Uber driver just trying to get home after a late fare, a seemingly normal drive turned into this high-stakes test of his own intuition against a very, very carefully told lie.
So picture this. It's after 2 in the morning. You are all alone, miles from anywhere. You see a car up ahead, hazards blinking, and a couple is flagging you down, desperate. This is the exact spot our driver found himself in. So what do? Do you stop? Your conscience is screaming yes, but something else, deep in your gut, is whispering maybe not.
He did decide to stop, but he was cautious, kept his distance. The couple frantically tells him, the bridge is out up ahead, it collapsed, you gotta take this little dirt path through the woods. But something about it just felt off. The driver later said their story felt rehearsed, so he had a choice, listen to them or listen to his gut. He chose his gut. He said thanks, kept driving on the main road, and guess what? A few minutes later, he reached the bridge. It was perfectly fine.
But you know how something like that just sticks with you? It wouldn't leave him alone. What was their plan? What was actually down that dirt path? The questions were just eating at him. So, a few days later, in the complete safety of broad daylight, he drove all the way back out there, determined to get some answers. And this is what he found. A new sign crudely nailed to a tree right at the mouth of that path. All it said was dead end. He was absolutely positive it wasn't there the other night. Someone had put it up recently. This wasn't a shortcut, it was a trap.
As he's standing there, just trying to process this ominous sign, his blood ran cold. From deep within the woods, down that exact path, he heard a woman scream. He didn't wait around. He got in his car and sped away. That sound confirming his absolute worst fears about what would have happened if he hadn't trusted his gut that night.
Our final story tonight takes us to a 24-hour gym, a place that's supposed to be about health and discipline, right? Well, this case goes way beyond psychological threats. For the one employee monitoring the security cameras, the night became the stage for a truly grotesque and terrifying physical showdown. It all started with just one man, the only other person left in the entire gym. The employee notices him on the cameras. He's running barefoot on a treadmill at a blistering 9 miles per hour, and he just won't stop. For more than 15 minutes, he just keeps going, staring blankly ahead. And right away, that's deeply, deeply unsettling.
So the employee, thinking he's got to enforce the Gym She's Required policy, leaves his office to go talk to the guy. But as he gets closer, the bizarre scene twists into something from a horror movie. The man's feet were literally being torn apart as he ran. The machine wasn't just wet with sweat, it was splattered and dripping with his own blood.
Panicked, the employee yells at him to stop, but the man doesn't even react. He just keeps running, his mouth hanging open, and in this cold, raspy voice, without even panting, he just keeps repeating the same question over and over. "Are you there?" It was this chilling, nonsensical response that just proved he was completely disconnected from the brutal reality of what he was doing to himself.
The employee backed away to his office to call the police, but when he glanced up at the monitor, his heart just stopped. The man had turned his head. He wasn't staring into space anymore. He was staring directly into the security camera, staring directly at him. He knew he was being watched.
And then, just like that, the man leaps off the still-moving treadmill and sprints out of the camera's view. The employee frantically clicks through the feeds, trying to find him. Then he sees him. He's in the locked employee hallway, just feet from the office door. And seconds later, the doorknob begins to rattle violently as the man screams and tries to break his way in. So, 3 different jobs, 3 different settings, but one terrifyingly consistent lesson, right? These stories aren't just here to scare you. They're about survival, and they're about that razor-thin line between a totally normal night and an absolute nightmare. So what's the thread that ties them all together?
Well, when you look at all these cases, a few truths just become crystal clear. First, your intuition is a survival tool. That little gut feeling isn't just you being paranoid, it's a primal alarm system. The Uber driver listened, and he's safe. Second, our sense of what's normal is an incredibly fragile illusion that one person can shatter in an instant. And finally, the most terrifying threats are usually the ones that defy all logic. A man buying food he never eats, or another running until his feet literally fall apart.
And all this really brings us to the final and maybe most critical question. We all have that inner voice, that instinct that flares up when a situation just feels off. In the comfort of daylight with people around, it's easy to dismiss it. But after hearing these stories, you have to ask yourself, the next time you're alone, maybe it's dark and that little voice speaks up, will you have the courage to listen?